Greg Olsen, 14 years in the NFL, a three-time Pro Bowler. He's such an excellent broadcaster for us. Nobody clarifies and simplifies the complicated faster and better than Greg Olsen. So this summer, I was out in one of my favorite little haunts in Rhode Island, and all of a sudden, all these big, guys, Luke Kuechly and Jonathan Stewart and Greg Olsen are sitting over there. They come over, and they were there for the Christian McCaffrey wedding, which, for the record, not invited, still a little bitter, no big deal. But Christian comes back this weekend. You played with him for 3 years in Carolina. And I remember being with my wife and meeting him. She could not believe he was a great football player. He's like, that guy. I'm like, he may be pound for pound the strongest football player in the history of the league. Take people behind your years with him, and just, I think after Walter Payton and Barry Sanders, he's in the argument for one of the best backs I've ever seen. Did you spot it instantly? What was it about him that you saw instantly?
Well, first off, I think his greatest quality is he throws a great wedding, and we can get into that at a different time. But for anyone who saw maybe some of the pictures that surfaced online, it's safe to say we had a really good time getting the band back together. But my favorite McCaffrey story, and I tell this like anytime anyone behind the scenes asks, just describe him. So he gets drafted, and remember, because he went to Stanford and they're on a different semester system, there's this rule where incoming rookies can't participate in the off-season program because of the semester quarters system or whatever they do at some of the schools around the country. So we didn't really get to see Christian much in the early stages of OTA. So Ron Rivera, our head coach, he's throwing a charity event. It's like a bowling charity event. So a bunch of the guys, of course, when your head coach throws an event, you go. So I'm sitting there, and McCaffrey's there, his mom. And this is really the first time that I get to meet him and his family because he hadn't yet been able to join us. And for the next 2 hours, he didn't bowl a ball. He didn't talk to anyone. He sat next to me in the lane that I was assigned to, and he asked me to describe our pass protection rules. How does Cam make the mic declarations? What does Ryan Khalil do? What's his hand gestures? For 2 hours, all he wanted to talk about was pass protection, our calls, our line movements, our responsibilities. And I remember going home that day, and I was like, I know this dude's talented. I watched all of his games. I think he should have won the Heisman his last year. But I was like, this dude's mindset, his work ethic, he was just unlike any rookie that I have ever been around as far as his approach and his maturity. And lo and behold, obviously his career has followed suit. We played together for 3 years. And then obviously he got traded out the year shortly after that I got released and went out and did my last year in Seattle. So he is a special player. Obviously him getting back healthy now from the Achilles will be a big boost. If San Francisco could just hang in there, get him back, I think we'll see them kind of start to ascend down the stretch here.
So you've had a couple Falcons games. We had picked the Falcons to win the division. I liked drafting Penix after acquiring Kirk Cousins, because I thought, okay, mature now, growth later. It's very Mahomes, Alex Smith. He didn't sign a ridiculous contract. It's a Kirk Cousins deal. It's fair. I think they're really good. I think they're super efficient. I think he's a grown-up. And I think Atlanta was a bunch of young kids and needed a grown-up. What is your you may know Atlanta better than any broadcaster. You've done several games. Can they beat a Detroit? Can they beat a Philadelphia? Or is it just they're going to win that division and that's nice? What do you see with them? Because they're starting to put W's together.
Yeah, I think if you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, so this is going to be my third Atlanta game in a row. I actually just shortly before jumping on with you, we just had our calls with Raheem Morris and Zach Robinson, who now I feel like I really know these guys because I've spent so much time talking to them over the last couple of weeks of the season. So if you would have asked me 3 weeks ago, could they go, in the divisional round or in the NFC Championship, could they beat the Lions or San Francisco if they're healthy and what we've seen? I think I probably would have balked on that. I would have said, hey, I need to see more. I need to see more growth out of the defense. I got to see a better pass rush. They've got to be able to stop some of these high-profile, prolific offenses. But the last couple weeks now, what I saw last week, albeit against Dallas, who's really banged up and they're having problems of their own, this is a team that, again, I never want to jinx anyone, knock on wood for their sake, is healthy. They're very talented on the offensive side of the ball. You talk a lot about Kirk Cousins, but they got first round picks everywhere. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts is having the best season since his rookie year.
Yes.
The quiet signing of Darnell Mooney. I don't know if anyone's really talking enough about him. Disappointing year last year in Chicago. He has been their most electric downfield player, leads the league in explosive catches. A quiet guy, Ray Armstrong, a offensive line that's gotten better. And then you got Raheem Morris, right? So you have Raheem Morris, who understands defense, that they might not have a bunch of superstars, a bunch of prolific guys, but the Jesse Bates of the world and Caden Ellis and the return of Grady Jarrett. I mean, they are very good, sound, solid at all three levels. And Raheem Morris, he knows a lot about defense. He understands how to get a defense better. So their ability to play complementary ball, I'm a lot closer to saying that they can compete in an NFC playoff picture with the likes of the Lions. I still think the Lions are the top dog. I think until proven otherwise, they are the team to beat in the NFC. They got that thing rolling. Goff, along with Lamar, is probably in that handful of guys in the MVP race here at the halfway point. But I really like the job that Raheem Morris has done. He took that job knowing they were a quarterback away from being very good. They've added a couple key pieces in free agency and through the draft, and he's got a really good coaching staff that has gotten the most out of their players here so far.
So listen, it looks like Drake May can play. Bo Nix can play. J.J. McCarthy before the injury can play. Caleb's certainly talented. And Jayden Daniels can not only play, he's like it's too easy. And my take on this is it's just like having kids. The less chaos, the more wisdom, the more protection. You watch the way the Ravens have slowly built up Lamar Jackson with support and how the Bengals have been cheap, moved off Mixon, haven't ever gotten the offensive line right. Even when you're great, Joe Burrow, you can see he looks angry all the time. He knows he's not playing with a team like a Jalen Hurts or even a Justin Herbert. The Jayden Daniels stuff. I mean, you saw a very young Cam. Are you surprised how seamless and effortless it's been? I know the SEC is good, but I mean, he's completing almost 72% of his throws. He doesn't throw bad picks. You a little surprised?
Yeah, I think we've seen over the year, especially over the last couple of years, there is a wide spectrum of immediate quarterback success. And whether you're the first overall pick or you're a lower pick, it doesn't really matter. Playing as a rookie in the NFL is challenging regardless of the position, but no more so than at the quarterback position. And we've seen great examples over the last couple of years of rookies who have come on to the scene and seem like they're even better than they were in college. And that was CJ Stroud last year as a rookie player, rookie of the year and takes Houston to the playoffs. And then we've seen top picks struggle and have a little bit more of a stunted growth and a little bit of a slower development. So I agree with you. So much about the early success and development of young quarterbacks in the league is the environment in which they get drafted to. So It's twofold. It's who's in charge, who is setting the culture, who is putting the parameters and whatnot about building the culture. And he has, in my opinion, probably the best culture guy in football. At least he's in the conversation in Dan Quinn. So I think they hire Dan. He brings some stability. He's an unbelievable balance of motivate. He's got a little Dan Campbell to him, right? Where, yes, he was a play caller and that was his backstory. But really the first thing when you bring up Dan Campbell's name or Dan Quinn's name, it's the first thing you see is like the eyes light up about all of their players. It's like, we love him. The fear of letting him down, it is a great motivating factor. And there's a few guys that just have that personality. Dan Quinn is one of them. So it starts there. I think, again, a sneaky hire that maybe didn't get the offseason buzz was hiring Cliff Kingsbury to be the offensive coordinator. And when we had Washington a few weeks back, Cliff was very honest. He said, my first order of business was not to install the Arizona Cardinals 2.0 offense and continuation of that, or necessarily what I did in college. He goes, my day one install this offseason was me sitting down with Jayden Daniels and saying, give me your top schemes, your top protections, your top route concepts that you loved in college. Give them to me, write them down in your verbiage. That's our day one install. And he's like, from that point, I could layer in elements of my system to best suit Jayden Daniels and where his strengths and protect some of his weaknesses. And I think you can see that. They don't huddle. They get up to the ball. They vary their tempos. They get in and out of different personnel groupings. They make the offense look a lot more complicated, But it's really just recycling a lot of similar concepts that he ran in college, some of the RPO stuff, some of the design quarterback runs where he just can keep the defense honest enough. And then he's wildly accurate, to your point. So it's a really good fit. He's got some good offensive skill guys around him, Terry McLaurin and Brian Robinson. So, yeah, the environment in which you walk into is the number one factor, not talent, not what you did in college, not what your draft status was. The environment in which you're drafted to, a la Brock Purdy, is the number one aspect of what determines whether you're going to have immediate success and growth or if the early days are going to be trying.
Finally, the two quarterbacks in college, which they're just different, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, they move well, they throw. He plays with sort of a casual comfort. I mean, he's just a very comfortable guy. It all feels a little backyard. He doesn't stress out. Does it translate when you see Cam Ward? I mean, obviously, Duke and Cal gave him trouble. Right now he's the guy. He's leading that team. What do you make of him stylistically? Does that work in the NFL?
I think that's going to be every single team in the top half of the draft. I think that's going to be every single front office's conversation until next year's draft. It's going to be, we see all these traits. We see the unbelievable arm talent. We see again, I always struggle using this word in comparison because it's probably not fair, but it is very Mahomes type style where it's not always in rhythm. His feet are not always set. Sometimes he's moving backwards, but it's the arm talent that kind of makes up for it. The question is, it's chicken or the egg, right? A guy like Mahomes was able to transition to an off-script, improvised style of passer, but it was built on the fundamentals of being a more traditional passer from his college days and then obviously early on with Andy Reid. So there is that foundation. He's just taking it to a level that is very hard to expect other people to be able to play a similar style. So when you look at Cam Ward, I had a chance to go down there and watch their first game down in the swamp against Florida. And I remember saying to one of the assistant coaches walking in at halftime, I was like, his feet are never set. He's always going backwards. Yet every ball has incredible, tempo on it, the pacing, it's on rhythm, it's in target. And even though he's not in rhythm, everything about the offense seems to be in rhythm. And I think that's going to be the big question is his talent is undeniable. Mario Cristobal and I had dinner back in the spring, and he goes, Greg, of all the dudes we've had, right, the Dorseys of the world, those guys that have just that incredible intangibles to make everyone around them fall in line and play better, he's like, he is unlike anyone that I've ever been around. He's very Justin Herbert from his days at Oregon as the head coach when Mario was there. He's like, he is that personality. And then, of course, he's wildly talented. So I think whoever gets him, wherever they get him, I think they have a star on their hands. You're going to have to just look past some of the things that don't look prototypical NFL quarterback. And if you can look past that, like a lot of people did with Mahomes, and again, I'm not saying he's Mahomes. That's kind of the path he's on. And I'll tell you what, he is fun to watch. He is a blast. And as a Miami guy, man, I hope they can score 50 in every game. And hopefully I can go to some of the playoff battles.
It's just a loosey-goosey, fun backyard style, but it works. Yeah. Greg Olsen, Fox Sports. Always appreciate you taking 10, 12 minutes for me. Appreciate it, bud.
Appreciate you.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.